It all started on a quiet Thursday evening. I was out running an errand, just a simple trip to the pharmacy to grab my wife's heartburn medicine. I didn't know that back at home my kids were about to hear something that would tear apart the image they had of our family. Sam, our eldest at 24, had come home unexpectedly to grab some old books from the attic. His sister Laura, 22, was tagging along. They weren't supposed to be home, but as fate would have it, they were, and they overheard something they never should have. As they walked past my home office, the door was slightly ajar. Inside, they heard my voice. I was on speakerphone, and I didn't realize it. I was talking to Erica, not a colleague, not a friend. Erica, someone who wasn't their mother. Sam froze. Laura's eyes went wide. Next Friday, same room. I'll bring the wine, I said, laughing softly. Laura turned to Sam, whispering, "Was that Dad?" "Who's Erica?" Sam muttered, clenching his fist. They knew something was off, and they knew they couldn't ignore it. The next morning, I came home like nothing had happened. The kids acted normal, too normal. That's when they started plotting. Sam couldn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of his bed, reading old family photo albums, trying to reconcile the man in those pictures with the voice behind that door. Laura was pacing the floor of her room, texting her brother. They met in the kitchen the next morning. "We have to tell Mom," Laura whispered. "She deserves to know." "What if it breaks her?" Sam asked. "She's our mother. She's strong." They decided to catch me in the act. If they could prove I was unfaithful, they'd have the evidence they needed to confront me and protect their mom. They found Erica's name in my contacts, saw the message, history. Nothing too explicit, but enough to confirm suspicion. They planned to follow me. I had told my wife I was going on a business trip the next weekend. Sam and Laura knew better. They tracked my phone. They waited. But while they were waiting, something else came up, something unexpected, something that would make them question everything. The night before my supposed business trip, Laura was in the kitchen when Mom left her phone on the counter. It buzzed. A message preview popped up. "Miss you already. Last night was perfect. Alex." Laura's heart skipped a beat. Her hand trembled as she picked up the phone. Against her better judgment, she opened the thread. Photos, messages, even voice notes. "Can't wait to feel your arms around me again," one message said. It wasn't just a flirtation. It was a full-blown affair. Laura felt sick. She stumbled into Sam's room and showed him the phone. Sam stared, speechless. "So, Mom's cheating, too?" They didn't know what to do. What had started as a mission to protect their mother had turned into a nightmare. Both parents, both unfaithful. Everything they believed about love, loyalty, and trust was unraveling. And the worst part? They still didn't know the whole story. That night, Laura went to bed staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Sam couldn't sit still. He drove around the neighborhood just to think. How could they confront either of them now? Who was right? Who was wrong? The next morning, I noticed the change. Laura was unusually quiet, and Sam barely looked me in the eye. At first, I thought it was just the usual stress of adulthood, but it lingered. I mentioned my upcoming trip again, testing the waters. Sam flinched. Laura tensed up. Then, after dinner, they pulled out their laptops. "We need to talk," Laura said. I looked at them, confused. "Is everything all right?" Sam spoke. "We know about Erica." I froze. My fork hit the plate. "What?" "We heard you last week, and we saw your messages," Laura added. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. I was cornered. I sighed, rubbed my face. "Okay, let's talk. You deserve the truth." I confessed. I told them how your mother and I had been growing apart, how lonely I felt, how Erica made me feel seen again. I didn't justify it. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I just told the truth. But before they could respond, Laura stood up. "You're not the only one hiding something." She pulled out her phone and played a voice note from Mom's messages. My world stopped. I heard a man's voice, warm, affectionate. "You always make me smile, Diane. I wish I could fall asleep with you tonight." I looked at Laura, stunned. Who is that?" "His name's Alex. We found out yesterday," Sam said. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My wife, my partner of over 30 years. The room fell silent. No one knew what to say. For a moment it felt like we were strangers sitting around that table, and yet we were a family, a broken one, but still a family. We didn't talk much that night. Everyone retreated to their rooms. But the next morning, your mother and I sat in the living room. No yelling, no accusations, just silence. "I know about Erica," she said softly. "And I know about Alex," I replied. We stared at each other, the weight of our betrayals hanging heavy in the air. Then she said something I'll never forget. "We broke before we cheated. The cheating just made it obvious." And she was right. That day, we called Sam and Laura to join us. We talked, really talked, for the first time in years. We admitted our faults. We listened. And though the road ahead was uncertain, we made a decision. We were going to therapy. We were going to try, because despite everything, the pain, the lies, the betrayal, we still loved each other, or at least we wanted to find out if we could love each other again. And for Sam and Laura, we wanted to show them that even when things fall apart, families can choose to rebuild, not because it's easy, but because it matters. Because they matter. And because love, real love, isn't just about the happy moments. It's about what you do after everything falls apart. The next few days were a blur. We went about our routines, pretending things were fine, but the air in the house was thick with tension. Sam and Laura were visibly on edge. Every glance, every silence seemed loaded with suspicion, hurt, and unanswered questions. Diane, my wife, knew something was wrong, too. She could feel it. Mothers always do. But she didn't say anything. Maybe she thought she was hiding her own guilt as well as I thought I was hiding mine. One evening, I walked into the kitchen and found Sam staring at a family portrait hanging on the wall. It was from 5 years ago, taken at the lake house during our last real vacation as a family. We were all smiling in the photo, carefree and warm. But now Sam looked at it like it was a picture of strangers. "Do you ever think about that trip?" I asked him. He didn't look at me. All the time, that was before all this. Before I could reply, Laura walked in, holding her mother's phone in her hand. She didn't say a word, just placed it on the table and walked back out. My stomach dropped. I turned to Sam. "What's going on?" He finally looked at me, eyes red. "We know everything, Dad, about Erica, about Alex, about everything." I sat down, defeated. "Then what do you want to do about it?" He didn't have an answer. That night, Diane and I sat in our bedroom. We didn't turn on the TV. We didn't scroll our phones. We just sat in silence. "We've lost them," she said eventually. "Not yet," I replied, "but we might." The next day, Sam and Laura asked to speak with us both. We sat in the living room, me on one couch, Diane on the other. The kids stood. Sam was pacing. "We don't even know who you two are anymore," he began. "Everything we believed about you, about love, about this family, it's been a lie." Laura added, "We don't need a perfect marriage, but we needed to believe it meant something, that you respected each other, that you respected us." Diane spoke softly. "We didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," Laura said. There was nothing I could say to that. Then came the question we weren't prepared for. "Are you two going to stay together?" Sam asked. We looked at each other. I wasn't sure of the answer myself. Diane took my hand. It surprised me. "We want to try, for us, for you, for what we used to be." Sam scoffed. "Trying isn't enough. You have to mean it, and you have to show it." "We know," I said, "and we will." From that day, things didn't magically improve, but the pretense was gone. We started therapy. First, couples therapy, then family sessions. The first few were brutal. Tears, silence, confessions. Diane admitted she felt abandoned. I admitted I felt invisible. Laura said she stopped believing in love. Sam admitted he was scared of becoming like me. We stayed with it. Slowly, things began to thaw. We started having family dinners again. No phones, no distractions, just food and conversation. One night, during a therapy session, our therapist asked a question that changed everything. "When did you stop being friends?" Diane looked at me, then down. "After the kids left for college, I guess." "I started to feel like a roommate," I said. "I felt like your nurse," she added, "like you only talked to me when you needed something." It was hard to hear, but it was real. We talked more openly after that, about everything, our disappointments, our regrets, our hopes. We started going for walks together again like we used to when we were first married. Sam and Laura were cautious, but they noticed. Sam even asked to come to one of our therapy sessions. Laura followed a week later. There were still bad days, triggers, setbacks, but for the first time in years, there was also hope. One evening, Sam came into the living room and sat beside me. "I'm proud of you, Dad," he said. "I didn't think you had it in you." I teared up. I hadn't cried in years. Laura hugged her mother and whispered, "You're trying. That's all I wanted." We were healing, slowly, painfully, but together. Because the truth is, love doesn't die in a day. It withers quietly. The first session with our new therapist as a full family was nothing short of explosive. Sam came in stiff and guarded, arms crossed over his chest. Laura's voice trembled from the beginning. Diane and I sat together on the sofa, our knees just barely touching. It was the first time all four of us were in a room with the truth between us and no secrets to hide behind. "Why are we here?" Sam asked, voice sharp. Because we still love each other, I replied, even if we've all done a terrible job showing it. Diane nodded. We hurt you. We hurt each other. But we want to do better. You didn't just hurt us, Laura said. You made us question everything we believe in. I thought you two were the example, the standard. The therapist leaned forward. That's a lot of pressure for any couple, and sometimes even good people fail under that pressure. That started a series of sessions that were raw and draining. We talked about our past, how Diane and I fell in love, how we drifted apart. Diane told the kids about the nights she cried herself to sleep, about the times I was physically present but emotionally gone. I admitted to them that I often felt like a ghost in my own home, walking around unseen and unheard. The kids listened. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they yelled. But they stayed. Outside of therapy, Diane and I began rebuilding piece by piece. We went on dates, awkward, nervous dinners where we asked each other questions like we were strangers. What scares you most? When did you stop feeling happy? I learned things about her I'd forgotten, or maybe never knew. She laughed at my jokes again. I caught her watching me while I read in the evening, something she used to do when we were first married. I started journaling. Our therapist encouraged it. I wrote down every emotion, every fear, every moment of doubt or hope. It helped. Diane did the same. Sometimes we exchanged journals. Sometimes we read them aloud to each other. It was terrifying, but it made us human to each other again. Meanwhile, Sam started bringing over his girlfriend Rachel. She was sweet, intuitive, and quiet. But during one dinner, she spoke up. I just want to say it's inspiring to see you all working through this. A lot of people would have just given up. Sam squeezed her hand under the table. Laura, who had been quiet, smiled faintly. It's still hard, but it's different now. One weekend, we invited everyone over for a barbecue, the kind we hadn't done in years. It was simple, burgers, salads, lemonade, but it felt like a celebration. Diane made her famous potato salad. Sam manned the grill. Laura brought a board game and insisted we play. We laughed that day, really laughed. And in that laughter was something deeper, relief. But the road wasn't smooth. A month later, I received an email from Erica. She'd heard I was working on things with my wife. She said she missed me, that she still thought about me. For a split second, the old temptation stirred. That escape, that validation, that comfort. But I didn't respond. I deleted the email. Then I told Diane. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat beside me and said, "Thank you for telling me." That night, we made love. Not out of passion, but out of forgiveness. And afterward, we held each other in silence, our hearts beating in rhythm, our breaths slow and even. It felt like the first honest moment in years. Sam and Laura noticed the change. They started calling more often just to chat. Laura even asked Diane for advice about her new job. Sam invited me to a father-son weekend retreat through his church group. I hesitated. Then I said yes. That weekend, around a fire pit, Sam said something I'll never forget. You know, I used to think you were invincible. Then I thought you were a fraud. Now, I just see you, and I think I love you more for being human. I cried that night, openly, with no shame. Back home, Diane and I started talking about the future, about retirement, about travel, about downsizing the house, about renewing our vows. One evening, I pulled out our wedding album. It was dusty. The photos were yellowing around the edges, but the joy in our faces, that young, naive, unstoppable love, was still there. "What do you think they'd say?" I asked, pointing to our younger selves. Diane smiled. "They'd say, 'Hang in there. It's going to get rough, but it's going to be worth it.'" We kissed gently. It wasn't a passionate, sweeping kiss. It was a kiss of gratitude, of hope, of survival. Because what we had wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and we were finally learning to protect it the way we should have all along. Months had passed since our lives were cracked open. If you'd stepped into our home during that time, you might have thought we were just another happy, aging couple, enjoying the quieter years of life. But you'd be wrong. Because healing doesn't look like laughter echoing through the hallways. It looks like conversations late at night, hushed and heavy. It looks like Diane sitting beside me on the porch, sipping her tea without saying a word, but staying. We were still in therapy, both as a couple and with our kids. It helped. Not because it fixed everything, but because it gave us the language we never had before. Diane and I had been married for over 3 decades, and yet we were learning to talk to each other like it was the first time. One morning, Diane woke up before me and made breakfast, just scrambled eggs and toast, but she placed the plate in front of me with a handwritten note. "Thank you for staying." I folded the note and put it in my wallet. It's still there. We talked about renewing our vows. It started as a joke, and I mentioned it while doing dishes. Diane looked at me over her reading glasses. "If we do, it better be real vows this time. No flowery poetry, only truth, nothing more." So we began writing them together, in secret. Each night we'd sit separately, jotting down fragments, and then share them out loud. I learned things about her I never knew. That she used to listen for the sound of my keys at night, hoping I'd stay home. That she once dreamed of opening a bakery. That the hardest part of our marriage wasn't the betrayal. It was the silence that came before it. Laura helped Diane shop for a dress, not a wedding dress, but something elegant, something that made her feel powerful. Sam and I went to a small men's boutique. He picked out a tie for me, navy blue with tiny gold specks. "It's understated," he said, "like you." We planned the vow renewal in our backyard. Nothing fancy, just family and a few close friends, a string of lights, a table full of memories, photos from every stage of our marriage, good and bad. There was one of Diane and me in our 20s, grinning, with ice cream smeared on our faces. Another of us in our 40s in the hospital room after Laura was born, both of us exhausted and crying. Sam insisted we include a photo from last year, one that captured the rawness. We were sitting apart on the couch, our faces solemn. "It's part of the story," he said. The ceremony was short, honest. Diane read her vows first. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I promise not to disappear into silence again. I promise to ask for what I need, to say when I'm hurting, to laugh when things are funny and cry when they're not. I forgive you, and I forgive myself." I took her hands in mine and read mine. "I promise to see you, not just as my wife, but as a person with dreams and fears, and a life beyond this home. I will stay not because I have to, but because I choose to. I love you, still and again. Sam and Laura stood beside us. There were tears, not the kind that sting, but the kind that cleanse. Afterward, Diane and I danced. Just one song, an old tune from the 70s. We swayed slowly. Her head rested on my shoulder. "This is what I thought we'd never have again," she whispered. Me too. We didn't talk about Erica or Alex that day, but their shadows were there, and that was okay. They were part of our journey, reminders of what we almost lost. Later that evening, as guests trickled out, Sam pulled me aside. "You really did the work, Dad. I didn't think you had it in you." "Neither did I." Laura hugged her mother tight. "You taught me something today, Mom. That strength isn't about pretending you're okay. It's about admitting when you're not and choosing to keep going anyway." That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, Diane and I sat on the couch barefoot and exhausted. We held hands. "We're not the same people," I said. "Thank God for that," she replied. There was no grand resolution, no perfect ending, but there was peace. And for the first time in a long time, there was hope. Not the blind kind, but the kind that's earned. Brick by brick, word by word, hurt by healing,